The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by Ascen. Ascen is a top employer of record in North America that exclusively helps staffing and recruitment agencies hire contractors compliantly throughout the US and Canada. Ascen's all-in-one white-label platform handles onboarding, timesheets, payroll, benefits, insurance, invoicing, and optional financing so you can grow quickly in the US and Canada. Start growing your staffing agency in the US today with Ascen. Visit us at ascen.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning, the Managing Director of Talent Recruitment Group. We are here with a new episode this week. I've got a very exciting guest who's joined me. Followed him on LinkedIn for some time, seen a lot of the stuff that he talks about around, the recruitment market, the US market in particular, AI. So much insightful information. But Ian, I'll let you take away a proper introduction of yourself for our guests.
Thanks very much, Elliot, and good to see you and speak to your listeners. I've been in recruitment this year about 40 odd years. Spent my time with Hayes and the Hayes Group, mainly working in tech recruitment across UK and EMEA. Became public sector director, and sold managed service. Left them about 15 years ago, and now I run my own sales training and coaching business globally. We have clients all over the world. One of our biggest markets and probably one of the most resilient markets at the moment is the US, North America, let's call it that. We've got quite a few clients in Canada as well as the US. So yeah,
Awesome.
Good time.
Good. Ian, tell me, obviously you just kind of given us a very short brief overview in terms of the US side of it, what you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about your exposure to the US and I suppose with the American markets, what you've seen over the years and how it's developed and really has, changed, I suppose the industry as a whole?
I guess at the moment we're currently working with four or five companies themselves in the US. So one in energy and tech, another one in futures, another one in engineering, another one in life sciences. I'm trying to think where the fourth one is. But essentially, they are all in what I would call professional services.
Yeah.
And the professional services market in the US it's odd. It's a bit weird. I think there are niches which are expanding quite rapidly. We can talk about this in a minute. I think for typical UK recruiters, that market is quite a challenge, can be quite a challenge. It's more complex, more dynamic. But there's lots of good money to be made there.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that, moving forward, look, the UK economy, especially in the recruitment industry, is having a lot of challenges at the minute, has been for some time now. I think since probably 2023, it's been on a bit of a downturn in certain industries. I know I do want to dig into a little bit more about, from a US perspective, your thoughts on that. But why do you think it's changed so much from what you see? Do you think firms are not keeping up with the change of times and what's coming out within technology? Do you think the economy has really dictated what's going on with the government? Like, is there any kind of thoughts or anything you can share on that?
I'll give you a brief answer and then I'll give you a more detailed one. The short answer is, you're right on both accounts. I think the political situation on both sides of the Atlantic in the last 10 years has been radically different. We've gone through Brexit. The Americans have got Trump. Trump is making that market massively different, up and down. Secondly, tech. I'll come and touch on tech in its purity, but tech specifically things like energy. Tech in energy, we're moving away from, whether Trump likes it or not, the long run push is into renewables.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with his view that we need to maximize what's in the ground to start with as we transition. And I think that's part of the big growth for recruiters. We are very good at renewables in Europe, and the Americans have been less so. There's been a great opportunity and it's been exploited quite well by a lot of Europeans selling into that market. Nuclear is a big one if you go to Canada, particularly. And again, skills have become globalized now. people move around, particularly my age group. I mean, I'm a boomer, as the Americans would call us. And the boomers are now free of children. So they're free to move around the world from, they can work out in Dubai and the Middle East to Asia and Asia Pac, and now, travel to America. So they'll go wherever the jobs are and the rates are, and they'll use it to expand their lifestyle. So all of those things. And then the final one, I think, is tech. AI is fundamentally, that is a paradigm shift. I will predict that in 3 to 5 years' time, the world of recruitment will be radically different.
Yeah.
Already signs, and if people haven't woken up and smelt the coffee in the next 6 to 12 months, then they won't be in business in 5 years' time. It's moving so fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not about using ChatGPT to customize a CV and write a few emails. That was last year. This year, people are using AI agents. 71% of businesses in EMEA are using AI agents. It's a similar number in the US, even higher, I think.
Yeah.
Businesses need to, and if you're not thinking about that now, as I say, you'll just be behind the curve. You'll never catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems to me, and obviously from my own business as well, that we're taking a whole different turn in everything that we do, whether it's utilizing the AI resources and options that we've got in the market to support what we're trying to achieve, but even touching on that outsourcing, offshoring model as well, that I suppose it complements AI. When you put the outsourcing option against AI, it complements each other, and it's a game changer for every business. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the market's now going towards, because as much as AI, and you'll know better maybe than I will, that as much as AI is a good functionality to run certain things of your business, you need someone to still kind of manage and control that AI, which is where the labor aspect of outsourcing and offshoring can work with that.
Yeah, I mean, there are some radical models. I mean, we've got some questions to go through.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Fire away with the questions.
So I get carried away when they go into this subject. I'm a bit obsessed with it right now and seeing it a lot. So, but look, tell me what you're seeing in terms of like sectors in the market. Where are you seeing the strongest signs of growth? Where are you seeing the markets that are taking downturns? Are they coming up? Are they expected to come up? And where should businesses be doubling down, into the next, 12 months, if you like?
Okay, I mean, if we're talking North America, I mean, I've just mentioned a few. Life sciences, growth sector, med tech, huge growth sector, and the whole biotech, med tech world. I mean, the issue with Trump and the pharmaceutical industries and wanting stuff to happen in the US as opposed to Europe, I think that's going to see a big shift. Green energy is still going to happen, but I think there's a resurgence in oil and gas as well. But as I said, don't avoid nuclear. Nuclear is a big one. And I think nuclear in Canada particularly is quite a big growth sector. There's big investments there. And where else was I going to say? Construction generally in North America is a big growth area, big sector. There's an awful lot of investment and spend. The Jobs Act, I think, is driving that. And then finally, we just talked about tech, software engineering, AI, machine learning. I mean, that's exponential. So all of those are the big key areas, but equally there are areas around that which are not growing as well. The legacy technology space is just like, dying. I mean, it's interesting because we've got the jobs figures from the US yesterday, I think, haven't we? Where they've now come back and corrected them, and they're now saying that the figures that were reported 6 months ago are now way behind where they should be. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see. It's very, very dynamic, and I think that's my advice to everybody is it's dynamic, but the opportunities are there. And if we're talking UK into US investment, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you think that the lack of or the slowdown in that is just due to the fact that technology is taken over and there's less demand for workforce employees?
So I have a connection with Horsefly. I don't know if you know Horsefly.
No, I'm not sure. Who are they?
You probably want to get one of the guys on here. Horsefly produce MI for recruiters on talent pools.
Okay, yeah.
And we're talking global talent pools. I did some work for a client who's got a subsidiary in mainland Europe, in Germany, in the Netherlands, and in the US. They provided me with data on availability of skills in all those markets and growth. And there is an estimate from them that as people grow, they are not recruiting more people. They're actually using AI. So I can talk of 2 clients this month alone that I work with. We've churned over a couple of 3 or 4 people in those, well, 4 or 5 people in those 2 businesses. We're replacing them with AI.
Yeah, got it. Fine.
Which is good news for profit and growth. And well, again, I'll come on and talk about it in a minute, but I feel very strongly that leaders now have got to have a vision, a new vision for their business.
Good.
What it will look like in 3 to 5 years' time. The whole market's going to be different.
Yeah.
Let me put something on the table. We haven't talked about this yet, but some of your listeners will be aware of Mercor, Mercor.com. If they're not, it's the single biggest threat to their business if they're in professional recruitment in the world. It's a model where a candidate will go for a 15-20 minute interview. The AI tech will assess their skill set in respective. So we were talking about technology, we're talking life sciences, we're talking engineering skills. It will assess the individual's capability and it will then match them to jobs and introduce them to employers. And the cost of this to employers recruiting is a fraction, absolute fraction of what the employers in the US are paying right now.
Yeah.
If it's a temporary job, they're then onboarded and payrolled through the whole process.
Yeah.
Business has just recently had £100 million investment from a whole raft of people, including Sam Altman from OpenAI, and their market valuation is £2 billion, and the business is set up by is owned by 3, 4, 21, 22-year-olds.
Yeah. And
that's it. So if you think about it, it's the Spotify model.
Just to be kind of like, create a debate on that, because I know we've got a couple of other things to go into, but as much as that sounds amazing and that's great, you're expecting and hoping for candidates to apply for the work through that site to then go to to find jobs. But what if the good talent out there, and obviously there's tens of thousands, or where I'm going with this, they don't want to apply. They need to be headhunted because there's specific roles.
Elliott, I'm on the same bus as you. I'm putting that out there. What I'm saying to owners is you need to be aware of this, and we as recruitment business owners need to up our game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And we need to differentiate our proposition.
Yeah.
So that is a threat. And this business is growing at a phenomenal rate. It's growing at 50% month on month. It's already capitalized on the US market. I will give another caveat. A large percentage of the people that it is shifting into the US are people from the Indian subcontinent.
Yeah.
The main purchasers of skills are the big AI houses like Meta and OpenAI and all the others. So it's a threat. And what I'm saying is, if we in the normal space are not smart enough to up our propositions, then we will lose. But I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
What I would say is, and we've got a program going with some of our clients where we get people to reimagine what their recruitment business will look like, and rethink about what it is we do that we're good at as human beings. And I don't agree that AI can negotiate an offer for a candidate with the client or with the candidate. I've been teaching trainee recruiters for the last 40 years about the psychological contract that we build with candidates. You're quite right. If you've got a talent pool that only you know about, then and you nurture that network that you can then extend. Yeah, agreed. And again, back to search. If people don't want to be farmed, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We've got to up our game. This is not about shifting CVs anymore. It's not about you pick up a candidate, he's applied to you, he used to work for JP Morgan, he's looking for a tech job somewhere in New York, and you farm him out to 10 or 15 other companies and you just wait and you sell him to the highest bidder. Those days are gone. If you're still doing that in 3 years, bye-bye. Don't be surprised if you've got no money coming in.
Yeah, I'm with you. Fine. see where it goes. It's just nuts. Like, it's honestly just nuts. It's constant as well. There's another company doing something similar to Mercor in a different industry, that you know that will come to market very soon. And I feel like that's kind of where a lot of these temp agencies are going to go down. So, you know, companies like those Adecos and those big houses that do the temp stuff, they're the ones that are going to see a lot of problems from that as well.
Well, they are, but equally they're recognizing the threat, so they're investing huge amounts in
They
AI.
can afford to, but those
Yes,
smaller ones can't. So they're
yes,
the ones in trouble. Yeah.
agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
Carry on with the next
Let's
question.
do it. Right. So, in terms of like UK firms going to the US, we just spoke about threats and differences and things that they
Yeah.
need to work around. But is there anything around, you know, I suppose that scaling to the US they need to be aware of? Because you've done so much work with some phenomenal businesses, Ian, over there and working with these owners. You know, is there anything that you could give advice to businesses contemplating that expansion over there?
I've seen two or three models. I won't mention the companies because it wouldn't be fair on them. One was a technology business that opened an office in New York, took one of their top contract billers from the UK, putting him into New York. Um, and often people say to do that, but it failed because it took them a long time to get a foothold in the market. Too
Yeah.
long. Costs were, having an office space in Manhattan is huge, absolutely phenomenal. And in the end, they just couldn't get to a profitable break-even point. The converse is a company that I worked with a few years ago, based in Manchester in the Northwest. They created a virtual office here in Manchester. Their team would come into work at 12 o'clock, stay till 8, Monday to Thursday, probably finish at 5 on a Friday. They built a contract business and a perm business in the UK. So when they opened an office in Manhattan in a WeWork, downtown WeWork, they were profitable. So the
Yeah.
pressure wasn't there, and they had existing clients to work with. So they've gone on from strength to strength, and they're very successful. So I've seen both models, and I'm sure there are other people where you can parachute a top performer in, but the market's very different. It's a lot more fast paced. There are a lot more voicemails. It's a lot harder to get hold of people. The legal and compliance market is very, very complex. As you will know, every state has different laws and taxes. So, you need to work with an umbrella company in the UK gives us some benefits, but working in that market in the US with, companies like Paystream or, whoever, somebody like that is fundamentally important.
Yeah.
It's really important because they will make sure that all your workers are compliant for one, they're
Yeah.
paid properly. You're not going to get a sudden and let's be honest, the legal authorities in America and the compliance authorities are a lot more robust than they are in the UK.
Yeah.
Fee structures are higher, so margins are much higher. Average fee in life sciences, $35,000-$50,000
Yeah.
for a fee.
Yeah. There's
You
a
know,
lot there. Yeah.
£26,000 for a fee. When are we getting for 26 grand in the UK?
Yeah.
The margins in fee in percentage terms are much better. But BD is a lot more complex, more sophisticated.
Yeah.
You need to connect those relationships.
The firms that I've seen become most successful in the US with business development are the ones that are actually putting themselves in person in front of businesses, but ultimately the events that they do, the networking aspect, the dinners, and actually taking on those relationships. I met a company in New York recently, and they said to me that it took a year for them to develop the client network that they wanted. They went over to the US, must have had 50 odd meetings in a space of 3 months. They came to nothing, but they nurtured those relationships of those 50 meetings. Probably a third of them became then their biggest clients in a year because they stayed persistent with it. I think the UK market is quite transactional and has always been in that way. So just to kind of like counter what you said, like you've got to be patient, you've got to keep nurturing those relationships and you've got to get out and about to do it. But
Yeah,
don't think because they haven't given you a job that month
yeah.
that they're crap.
100% agree with that, Elliot. When
Yeah.
I say it's fast paced, I mean when they give you a job, they're expecting CVs quickly.
Yeah.
It's not fast paced from a business development point of view. Yeah, it needs nurturing, and I actually think the UK and European markets are very much like turning to what you've just talked about, and
Yeah,
we do
absolutely.
also. Go
No,
on, ask me
absolutely.
another question, whatever.
Let's do it. I've got one more big question for you, because we've covered quite a lot in just conversation. But if you were, which I'm sure you do anyway, advising a company, you know, $100 million turnover business in the industry in the US, what priorities would you tell them to look at as a strategy when it comes to AI augmentation? Where would you say are the kind of the main pillars that they need to put their attention to?
Okay, so there are three things I will be saying. First one is they've got to have a strong vision, and it needs to incorporate artificial intelligence. They need to have a roadmap. They need to think, how are they going to transition from what they do now to a fully integrated AI business in 3 years' time? And what is it that's going to make them difference? What's the raison d'etre? If we're up against a Mercor, for all the reasons, we can all see it's a commodity offering and it's commoditizing recruitment. And let's be honest, businesses, if we go back to buying food in the UK, we don't all shop at the cheapest supermarket. A number of us use things like Waitrose and Marks and Spencers, and in the north use Booths and things like that. So there is always going to be always going to be a place for niche recruiters, search people, but we won't need as many. And what we need to do is those businesses need to differentiate their proposition. What makes them unique?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And we just talked about BD and how they look at the internal ops and how they automate their back office. And also the other thing is there are things with AI that we can offer to candidates that we haven't been offering because we don't have the time.
Yeah.
I've got two of my clients that are actually now employing AI assistants. They are taking over jobs. We've created jobs for them. One's doing back office compliance. The other one is doing finishers reporting and finishers placing. And I've got another client that is actually making the first candidate calls because they're supplying people to BPOs in Europe in foreign languages, and the AI assistant is ringing up the candidate and saying in whatever language they want to talk to them in, German, French, Polish, Dutch.
Yeah.
And placing them in jobs. So then the consultant then goes in afterwards and does the proper sort of qualification and everything else. So that's one area. The next one is invest in the teams, in the people. If the business is going to look different in 3 years' time, then we need to look at the roles that those people will be doing. Are they the same roles? And are the skills of the people we've got, are they the skills that we'll need in a couple of years' time? They're probably not. So we need to transition and train and upskill those people in data literacy. In the big gap for me, the big opportunity is in consultancy.
Yeah.
So, and it's hugely satisfying. I work with some of the largest employers and public sector bodies in the UK, helping them move from A to B. And that requires consultancy selling, and we need to be selling consultancy to our clients.
Yeah.
If you're JP Morgan and you've got 40 people over here in jobs that are going to be made redundant, and you're going to create new roles over here, which are hybrid roles of those, because you're going to automate some of them, you're going to change the competencies, and so these roles look very different. The employer, JP Morgan, are going to say to their recruiter or their recruitment partner, where do we find those new people? Where do they come from? Because the old people are not right. And there'll be some people you can transition, but they'll probably want 20 or 30, or they might want 10 or 15, come from different backgrounds. Now, JP Morgan's in-house talent acquisition people won't know where those skills are because they're not reaching into the whole market. But that's where we can, as niche recruiters. That's where you guys in search can. It's a huge opportunity because once you've identified them, then you might need 4 or 5 really top guys to go out there and you get them. And by guys, I mean, males and females and everybody. And then the final area is we need to specialize. We need to verticalize, So those you've got to know your sector.
Yeah.
You've got to know it inside out. And what I would be saying in the medium term now, years ago I said long term, but in the medium term, you need to build private candidate client networks.
Yeah.
And as you put it, people who don't want to be found on LinkedIn.
Yes.
The biggest trend is people making themselves not visible on LinkedIn. They use LinkedIn for networking, but they don't want to get this bombard of phone calls, particularly in some of those verticals we talked about, like tech, life sciences. And you will know this, Elliott, better than anybody else. So, and I see AI as being able to support us, because once you've created those networks, it's how do you cultivate them? How do you keep them relevant? How do you keep communicating with a solutions architect or a clinical trials director or whatever, when they're not looking to change jobs? How do you keep talking to them for those 12, 18 months and not being a nuisance? So you need to communicate with them and share information like, I don't know what you'd call it, a newsletter.
Yeah.
Or invite them, as you talked about a minute ago in New York, to an event where I mean, 20 years ago, I used to do this at Hayes with my public sector people. We would run an event at our office in Manchester or London where we'd invite a load of clients, freelancers, to come along and hear one of them talk about a topic.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be how the DWP are changing something, or how NHS Connecting for Health is going to connect every hospital and GP surgery in the UK. And people will come along and listen to that. It's got nothing to do with recruitment. I can tell you, because I track the data, because I have to justify this to my bosses, 70% of the people that turned up at those gave us business in the following 12, 18 months.
Yeah.
That's back to your point about nurturing. And I think that's what people need to get into, that mindset, not taking a CV here, sticking it over there or there or there and selling. That's gone.
Yeah.
You need to add value. So
absolutely.
Do you agree with all of that? I mean,
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, everything you're saying is stuff that I talk about on a weekly basis, daily basis. You know, the US market, I do a lot of advisory work for, so I kind of everything you said is what I would say. And everything you're suggesting around the added value piece is essential. And I keep talking to my own team about that right now is, you know, to be different, to stand out, to add value every time we have a phone call with someone, not to take away that transactional piece from what we do, you know, whether it is utilizing some sort of aspect of AI to upskill what we're doing as a business. That's what we're always looking at. And I advise every company I speak to do the same thing. Those that aren't doing it or being left behind, I personally see it a lot, just naturally in my marketplace. And, you know, I think that unfortunately, if they don't do anything about it, whether they're in the UK or US, they're gonna suffer, you know, in one way or another. So totally agree.
There you go. Well, I'm good to hear it that that's the way you see it, because that encourages me that people at your level are getting this message. Because I work with APSCO. I'm on APSCO's representative committee, and it worries me greatly that recruitment business owners are not waking up to these threats right now and thinking, how does our business look? How do we, you know? So it's fantastic to hear you feel that way, Elliott. And just an offer: if any of your podcast listeners who are at that kind of level would like a conversation with me, just drop me a note. We'll have a half.
I was going to ask, how can they find you? Where's your details other than LinkedIn? Is that the best place to go after?
Yeah,
you share all those anyway.
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. Also, yeah, let's start by saying, let's make it simple. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Make sure they say that's why they're connecting, and then I know. Because I must get, like you do, 50, 60 randomers a month ringing me, trying to sell me some sort of
absolutely
marketing that, it's like, anyway, yeah, you know what I mean?
No, you can take your background in as an example. When people look at your LinkedIn, they'll see how much, experience that you have, and your credentials kind of speak for itself. So for those listening in, for any clients of ours of the business, or any candidates or anyone in the industry that wants to get some information from Ian and around the US, around AI and where he sees things going, or some, sort of aspect of coaching, strategy, we'll be sharing all this information on all our socials that go out to everybody. So, Ian, look, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for all the insights and information that you've provided. I love having these conversations, and I end up sitting here just listening to the fact that I forget that I'm actually doing a podcast most of the time. So, I'm just getting myself, I love podcasts in general, but when I get really interesting guests like you, I end up just sitting there and forgetting that I'm supposed to kind of be asking questions because I'm so engrossed in it. So, but Ian, again, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure.